All right, everybody. I've been scrambling today because our flight on Wednesday morning got canceled, and we are on an earlier flight this morning. So, as you're watching it this morning, so I got to Auburn High School at 4:30 this morning, and I have a 7 a.m. flight to catch with a long layover in LAX, and then on to Tampa, Florida from there. So, whoever is running my classroom right now, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. If you are a teacher in the building who's covering for the day, I appreciate it. Um, if you are a guest teacher for the full day, thank you for being here. Should be a pretty easy day. Um, Kids in my world studies classes will be just going over our French Revolution notes. So here you go, everybody. We started our French Revolution notes and got all the way to number 3 here, D3, all the way on Friday. And so we are going to continue on with causes of discontent in France today. So if you could get your cursors and your Chromebooks open there. Again, whoever's um, running my class today and has turned this on, feel free to stop the video at any point to get people where they should be, making sure that people have enough time to write each of the things that are up there in their notes today. We will get all the way through this, and there is a short exit ticket today for all of my students to write. So, which of the causes of the French Revolution do you find would make you the most angry had you lived during the time period? Make sure to write about why it would make you angry and how your family might be affected. So, this is perfect for all of you that are looking for commentaries for Friday's written assessment. This will be perfect. This is the type of thing that you would put in as a commentary why this would make you revolt. So that's the last thing you'll do today at the end of the notes today. So here we go. We're going to start with causes of discontent in France. And away we go. So if you remember, we talked a lot about the 3 different estates, right? So the first estate, the clergy, and all of the taxes that they did not pay and all the money that they were making off of their land. We talked about the second estate, the nobility, again, not paying taxes at all, making a bunch of money. And we talked about the third estate. Part of them is the bourgeoisie, and then the lowest class, everybody else, the poor people of France. And these people, both the bourgeoisie and the poor people, are being charged a ton in taxes. So here we go. Causes of discontent. We're going to get past this here. Causes of discontent in France. I like this one orange. This is a political cause. The Enlightenment, right? The ideas of liberty and equality are giving hope to people. We talked about this with our primary sources last week when we read the Declaration of Independence and when we read Rousseau's Social Contract. There is information out there that people are reading in France. Remember, we put Rousseau's Social Contract 26 years before the French Revolution, the Declaration of Independence 13 years before the French Revolution. People are reading these things and they are learning about equality and they are learning about liberty and they are wanting those things for themselves and they are not seeing it in their government. Economically, there is a massive difference. Ooh, hold on. Let me go back here. A massive difference in the quality of life between rich and poor people. So if you are poor in France in the 1780s, you are dirt poor. There is no money available for you. There is nothing that is going to get you out of that poverty. As I said on Friday, you are eating hand to mouth, right? Whatever you have, you are eating that day. You have nothing left. You are waiting for your next meal and where that's going to come from. And the people that are rich in France at the time, the people who are the clergy and the nobility and all of those things, their money that they have is, I mean, the best word for it is obscene, right? Obscenity is something that's usually used for something lewd and crude, but this, like when you see the amount of poverty of people in France, and then the amount of food and wealth and mountains of stuff that the rich people have, it is a massive difference between the two. Now, these pictures are going to end up covering up the bottom. So hopefully you got that. It says life between the rich and the poor at the end there. So these pictures right here, right? So these women are spending thousands and thousands of their money on these fashions and then things in their hair, and you're going to see it in the video next week. And these people are living, probably with the same pair of clothes, just one pair of clothes for the rest of their entire life. No shoes. They can't afford food, and these people are just spending massive amounts of money on stuff that doesn't matter to like living their life. And so that'd be an economic, right? The way I explain it to people is that most of the time, like, I don't complain about being, not being Bill Gates, because for the most part, my life is okay. I have a house, I have, some two cars, I have a job, my wife has a job. We're not really wondering where our next meal is coming from. Our fridge is stocked. Yeah, I'm not Bill Gates. I can't just go take a vacation to the, south of France whenever I want to, or, fly to Tahiti whenever I want to, like he could. But my life's not bad. So I'm not really that concerned with Bill Gates having a ton of money. If it was this, though, if I was dirt poor, yes, this would be a problem right here. Our next one, rising taxes on peasants with only small wage increases. So you have this in your packet right now. You have this infographic here, and it's a really, really good one, right? So we already know that taxes are way high on people, right? We learned that on Friday from the third estate and all of that kind of stuff. But at the same time that taxes are going up, prices are going up. So take a look at this time period between 1726 and 1789. Their incomes, how much farmers make, only rises 16% in all of that time. But take a look at the rest of these, like pretty much staple food and crops and things that they need. 58% increase, 91% increase in firewood, 66 and 71% increases on wheat and rye. These are really good facts to use as a concrete detail. Yes, concrete detail number one could be that your taxes are rising, but concrete detail number two is that prices are rising. They are just skyrocketing. And when you have raised prices, but your income only goes up a little bit, this is what we call inflation, right? This is when your income doesn't meet what the current prices are. If your income goes up and prices go up, so you start down here, income goes up, prices go up, nothing's really changed. The amount of money that you're spending has changed, but you're making more money too, so that's not a problem, right? If your income goes up and prices stay low, that's a really good situation for you. But it's the exact opposite in France, right? Your income is going up slightly and prices are going through the roof. And so these people are struggling because they literally cannot afford food just with the prices. When you tack on the fact that taxes are rising at the same time, you have two totally different but very similar concrete details here that would make people very upset with what is going on in France. You're going to see in the movie, price of bread raises to about a month's wages at one point. It is astronomical jumps in prices. We talked last week about the price of gas right now in the United States. What if it went to $8 a gallon? What if it went to 15? What if it went to $20 a gallon? And every single one of you, to a person, basically said, "Oh yeah, bad things would happen if that were the case in the United States." So you know what I'm talking about here. And then politically, Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI are just awful, awful rulers. They are only concerned with themselves. He is hesitant. He is indecisive. He cannot make decisions. They're too young. You're going to see in the movie tomorrow. One of his quotes is, "Forgive us, Lord, because we reign too young." Marie Antoinette is the very definition of a celebrity who spends way too much money on themselves, and that money that's being spent is basically money that is taxes that is coming from these really poor people. This is the garden at Versailles, which is their palace, right? You can tell. This takes massive amounts of upkeep. This is their the Palace of Versailles, and you can see all the gold and the crystal and all of these things, and all of the money from these common people were going to this lavish lifestyle of just food and excess and just obscene amount of money. And again, constantly ignoring the common people of France. Continual bad decisions. You're going to see some of those at the end of the notes today. So again, that's a political cause. So now you're on your second one of a political cause, and you're going to see a bunch more about Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette in the movie tomorrow with Mrs. Tate, and she should be able to stop the video and point out some of those things at different points in the video. So moving on, let's talk about how this whole thing happens. In 1789. Louis hires this finance minister. He hires this guy named Jacques Necker, and Jacques Necker basically tells Louis, "Hey, listen, you need to bring this meeting of the estates back together. Hadn't been done in a couple hundred years, and we need to talk about new tax policy and new economic policies so that we can get these prices and these taxes kind of under control." And remember, Jacques Necker is the kind of the one person in Louis' group who is kind of a friend of kind of poor people and the third estate and kind of the middle class. Now, when they get together in this Estates General, right, here's your big political cause. This needs to be one that you write about on Friday. I mean, it has to be one that is right at the forefront of what you are talking about. When they get to vote in the Estates General, essentially each group votes as a group. They don't vote as individual delegates to the Estates General. All the people who represent parts of the First Estate get together and they vote as the First Estate. The Second Estate all gets together. They vote as the Second Estate, and same thing with the Third Estate. And so the problem with this is, and you need to fill this in at the bottom of I'll show you where you need to fill this in here. I'm going to come back to this, so hold on here. So in your notes, as you're going down here, this is the section that I'm talking about, percentage of the population, percentage of the vote. So this information that you're going to put in right here is great information for a concrete detail here. So we're going to go back to our notes. So there you go. So essentially, 2% of the population in the First Estate and 2% of the population in the Second Estate both have essentially 1 out of 3 total votes. If we're voting as a group, each 3, estates get to vote. That essentially means that 2% of the population has 33% of the vote. Now, these people are really rich. These people are really rich. So all these 4% of the population needs to do in the Estates General is vote together to protect their wealth and their richness. And this 96% of the population will not win ever. 96% of the population gets 33% of the vote. What it should be, if this were fair, if this were a democracy, 2% of the people would have 2% of the vote. 2% of the people, 2% of the vote, and 96% of the people would have 96% of the vote. That is clearly not what's happening here. So what you need to say in your concrete detail on Friday is that voting is unfair, and explain this process. Explain to people that they do not have an equal say as the First and Second Estate do. The easiest way to explain this, I have 2 siblings. I have a younger sister and a younger brother, and my brother and I, we weren't terribly nice to my sister all the time. And my parents, it was a big treat for us to go out to eat when we were kids. My parents weren't terribly well off, so every time we got a chance to go out to eat, it was kind of a big deal. And so my parents would say, "Where do you guys want to go to eat?" And my brother and I would kind of like secretly conspire. And my brother and I would secretly conspire against my sister, and we'd pick the restaurant that she didn't like the most. And so we would do that, and then my brother had this weird little sing-song voice at the end, and he'd say, 2 against 1, we won, right? And she would not be very happy with us. And we'd do that every once in a while until my parents kind of got wind of it, and then they'd pick her every once in a while. But you get the idea, right? This 2 against 1, essentially, these people vote each time on their own, or together, and they can outvote the third estate every time, is essentially what's happening here. So make sure you have all of these numbers in your chart there at the end, 2, 2, and 96, and then 33 all the way down there. So a political cartoon like this comes out at the time in France, and it's very easy to see why a political cartoon would come out like this. Down on the bottom here, this is the third estate, right? Blind, being led by the mouth, in chains, right? Very similar to Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Man is born free, but everywhere he's in chains. And then we got fat King Louis the 16th here, represented with the sword and his little sash right there, and the whip that running the country. And then on top, you have these two clergy members, Catholic and Protestant, up here, kind of running, sitting on. Notice these people are all very, very well fed. And the person down here very emaciated, right, showing people what they felt visually, how the third estate was being treated in France at the time. So the third estate, or the estates, meet in May and June of 1789, and the third estate basically says, we want more votes, more representation. We want our votes to count more, and we want the first and second estate to pay more taxes. And as you can imagine, you probably are thinking exactly what I'm thinking, which is the first and second estate, they aren't that receptive to this, right? Them paying more in taxes means they lose some of their money, and rich people hate losing their money. So this is not met with a lot of applause on the first and second estate. And so Louis makes another dumb decision here. In the process of all this, in June 20th to be exact, the third estate shows up to meet, like they've been meeting for the last couple weeks, and they are literally locked out of the assembly. They are locked out of the place that they have been meeting. They get there, the doors are locked. They can't get in. Because, to be honest with you, if you go back to our notes here, if you go back to this, do the first and second estate need them? They don't need them at all to vote for anything. So Louis XVI locks them out, and the third estate essentially says, what's going on? There must be a coup to get rid of us. There must be a plot to get rid of us. And at the same time, Louis makes the decision, because he's worried about how people are going to react once they find out. He moves troops, about 30,000, I believe, into Paris at the same time. And so now you have two forces kind of happening. One, people are starting to hear about the third estate being locked out. They're starting to hear that maybe the king isn't very sympathetic to them. And at the same time, he's moving troops in. So what are these people in Paris going to think? They're going to think that these troops are going to start firing upon them and keeping them from supporting the third estate, essentially, is what you have here. So had Louis not moved troops into Paris, we might not have had the same situation. But these troops are a literal, visceral threat to the people in Paris, who are looking around saying, what else can go wrong here? We can't afford food. We can't afford our taxes. These people are bleeding us dry. And now all we've asked is to just get a little bit more representation and pay a little less in taxes. And he's moving troops in to fire on us? What the heck is going on here? And so you can imagine how people start to react. And react they do. But before that, the third estate moves to what is essentially a tennis/handball court, and they create what they call the Declaration of the Rights of Man. It's a new constitution. They spend a couple days there. They create a new constitution and a new National Assembly, and they just declare themselves. And they say, we're the government of France now. King no longer rules. We're the government. Now, that doesn't have a lot of backing to it, unless you have the military on your side, unless you have some way to back that up. That doesn't that doesn't amount to a hill of beans. But in this case, it is a pretty big deal. It is all of the third estate basically telling the king and the first and second estate, go take a hike. We don't need you anymore. And in July 11th, so June 20th was when the troops moved into Paris. On July 11th, Louis fires Jacques Necker. So Louis is unpopular. Jacques Necker is very popular. Another in a list of his bad decisions politically. Again, if you want to give this as a specific concrete detail, specific example within your concrete details in your writing of Louis's bad decisions, firing of Jacques Necker, moving troops into Paris, all of those things can go right on the list in all of the bad decisions he makes. Again, if you kids are still working, kids are still typing this in, feel free to pause the video and go from there. But I'm going to move on here. Hopefully everybody's ready and ready to go. So at this point, July 14th happens. You got troops in Paris. You got Jacques Necker being fired. You have them with no real political outlet at this point, but to gather their weapons and try to attack the very symbol of everything that was wrong. And in the center of Paris was this prison called the Bastille, and it is essentially a place where people were tortured in the past, and the people kind of make their way there. They were also holding ammunition at this prison, which is kind of a weird place to have ammunition in my mind, but ammunition was there nonetheless. People go there to loot it for weapons and ammunition, and when they get there, the stories are that people are literally breaking down the Bastille, kind of pulling bricks apart with their bare hands. They kill the guards. They stab them. One of the guards at one point is just let me die, and the whole groups of people resort to stabbing him and killing a bunch of the guards, and their heads are paraded around on spikes. You'll see this in the video tomorrow. It's a pretty brutal and bloody scene at that point. So your exit ticket today, and again, since we are just talking about the causes of the French Revolution, we're not going to go anywhere past this. I'll let the film do that on Thursday with you to see where this all ends up, and it gets pretty bloody after this. But here's your exit ticket today, and go ahead and do this on your own. Spend as much time as you need to individually getting this in there. I would say you probably need 2 to 3 sentences on this exit ticket quick write. So which of the causes of the French Revolution, any of those political or any of those economic causes, would have caused you to be the most angry and revolt against your government? How would your family have been affected? Try to get as much into put yourself into their shoes as possible on this. So good luck with this. Make sure you finish this today. Again, when this is done, I know we probably finished a little bit early today. You can go and work on a retake of any of your past turning point assessments. There are some of you who still need to figure those out and get those turned in. You can study your Quizlets. Your need to know quiz is coming up on Thursday. And again, thank you to our guest teacher who is here today, or if it is a teacher that's covering, thank you very much. I appreciate it. This is not something I planned or wanted to do, is to leave a day early here, but gotta roll with it. So thank you very much, and you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys after spring break. Enjoy the movie tomorrow, and good luck on your need to know quiz on Thursday, and good luck on your written assessment that we'll post on Friday.